Welcome back to Whole Bible Study with Tanya Noy. Today we're continuing the discussion from Genesis 49, a chapter rich with poetic poetry, tribal identity, and foreshadowing of Israel's identity. We unpacked a lot in the main study, but there's still much more to explore. In this session, I want to take us into 5 areas we didn't fully cover in the main episode. The literary form and ancient genre of patriarchal blessing, the development of tribal geopolitics and land inheritance, messianic interpretations across Jewish and Christian traditions, the significance of Jacob's burial request, and how ancient Israel remembered and interpreted Genesis 49. So let's dig in. The literary form of patriarchal blessings. In Genesis 49 is a part of a unique genre in the ancient Near East. Testament literature, deathbed speeches from a patriarch or a hero to his descendants. These were common in cultures like Egypt, Mesopotamia, and even Ugarit. They usually served 3 functions. They passed on authority and memory, they offered moral and spiritual instruction, and they set legal or territorial expectations for the future. In Genesis 49, we see all 3, but what makes Jacob's blessing stand out is that it's not merely fatherly advice, it's deeply prophetic. The text uses Hebrew parallelism, poetic imagery, and even wordplay. For example, Reuben is compared to unstable water, a metaphor not just moral instability, but for political unreliability. Dan is called a serpent by the path, invoking both cunning and danger. And importantly, Jacob claims to speak about the days to come, Berachrit ha-yamim, a prophetic phrase we usually find in Isaiah, Jeremiah, and the minor prophets. This makes the blessing not just a family farewell, but an early prophetic utterance shaping Israel's theological imagination. Number 2, tribal geopolitics and land destiny. We often treat these blessings as symbolic, but they actually shape the geopolitical makeup of Israel. For instance, Judah was promised leadership and dominion, and it's no coincidence that David, Solomon, and the kings of the southern kingdom come from Judah. Reuben, despite being firstborn, receives no lasting legacy or significant land claim. By the time of Moses, Reuben's tribe is already declining in Numbers 26. Levi receives no land inheritance, but is instead given Levitical cities dispersed throughout Israel in Joshua 21, which fulfilled Jacob's curse that they would be scattered. Historical critical scholars often read Genesis 49 backwards, suggesting that these blessings may reflect events or power dynamics from a later stage in Israel's development, likely during or after the United Monarchy, 1000 to 900 BCE. That is, the so-called blessings may have been shaped or edited to align with how the tribes actually evolved. This theory doesn't undermine Scripture, rather it reminds us that the Bible records both prophecy and fulfillment, and sometimes they're preserved together. Number 3, messianic themes and the line of Judah. One of the most pivotal verses in Genesis 49 is verse 10. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until he whom it belongs comes. The Hebrew phrase is ad ki yavano Shiloh. This is one of the most debated messianic verses in the entire Old Testament. Early Jewish interpreters like the Dead Sea Scrolls or Targum Onkelos saw Shiloh as a messianic figure, someone who would come from Judah and bring peace or justice. Some rabbis interpreted it as referring to a specific place, Shiloh the town, while others said it meant he whose right it is, he whose right it is, similar to Ezekiel 21:27. In the Christian tradition, the early church connected this prophecy directly to Jesus Christ, especially when paired with Revelation 5:5, where Jesus is called the Lion of the tribe of Judah. He is the one whom obedience belongs. So Genesis 49:10 stands as a foundational messianic promise, a thread that stretches all the way from Jacob to Bethlehem to New Jerusalem. Now the theology of burial and return. Jacob ends this chapter with a clear and specific command. Bury me with my fathers in the cave in the field of Machpelah. Why is this so important? To Jacob, being buried in Canaan wasn't just a sentimental wish, it was a statement of faith. Even though he was dying in Egypt, he wanted his body returned to the land of promise. The cave of Machpelah already held Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Rebekah, and Leah. It was covenantal. It was a covenant anchor, a symbol that their story didn't end in Egypt. In ancient Israel, burial location was deeply tied to ancestral identity. It wasn't just about personal comfort, it was about corporate memory. By insisting on the burial in Canaan, Jacob was declaring, we are not Egyptian. We are part of the covenant. God's promise is not here, it's there. Interestingly, later in Genesis 50, Joseph also requests his bones to be taken out of Egypt, fulfilled the centuries later in Exodus 13:19. These burial requests are more than funerary. They are acts of covenantal resistance. They say, even in death, I believe in the promise. How Israel remembered these blessings. Throughout Israel's later history, Genesis 49 became a key reference point for identity formation, tribal structure, and messianic hope. The Dead Sea Scrolls quote from Genesis 49 as a messianic source, so do the rabbis of the Talmud, who regularly turn to these tribal oracles to explain events in Israel's history. Even the New Testament relies on this chapter indirectly. Matthew's genealogy highlights Judah's line, Revelation calls Jesus the line of Judah, and Hebrews 11:21 references Jacob's acts of blessing as a supreme act of faith. Genesis 49 became a theological anchor, a way to explain not only where the tribes came from, but also where the hope of Israel was headed. Closing thoughts. Genesis 49 is not just a farewell chapter, it's a vision chapter. It reveals how God speaks through history, through flawed people, through poetic metaphor, and tribal politics. It reminds us that prophecy can both be presented and can be both present and future, fulfilled and unfolding. But what moves me most about this chapter is how honest it is. Jacob doesn't sugarcoat his son's failures. He doesn't pretend every tribe is equal, and yet every son is seen, every son is addressed, every name is remembered. That's how God deals with us too. He sees us truthfully. He names both our gifts and our faults, and still he includes us in the story. Thank you for walking through this deeper look at Genesis 49 with me. If something new stirred in you today, if a phrase stood out, or if you saw in your own story reflected out in these tribes, I'd love to hear that from you. Drop your comments or questions in the comments below. Let's continue to grow deeper and deeper together. I'm grateful for you. May you walk forward today with clarity, courage, and the confidence that God's story still includes you, even when you feel scattered, struggled, or unseen. See you in the next chapter.